You're lying in bed on a Sunday morning. No alarm. No one needs you. The light is coming through the curtains and everything is technically fine. And yet there's this feeling, low and formless, a kind of static humming just beneath your ribs. You should feel rested. You don't. You feel slightly wrong, like you've forgotten something important, like you're supposed to be doing something you can't quite name. So you reach for your phone, you check on someone, you make a plan, you find a problem, and the static quiets. Most people would call that being productive, responsible, dependable. What it actually is your nervous system doing the only thing it knows how to do: survive. There's a term in developmental psychology called parentification. It describes what happens when a child is forced to take on emotional or practical responsibilities that belong to the adults around them. When the child becomes the one who manages moods, mediates conflict, holds the house together, or simply makes themselves invisible so nothing gets worse. It doesn't require abuse to happen. It can happen in a home full of love, a parent going through depression, a divorce no one talked about, a family where money was always tight and tension was always present, a mother who needed her daughter to be her best friend before she was old enough to know what that meant. The child adapts, because children are brilliant that way. Your brain, housed under chronic low-grade stress, rewires itself. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for long-term thinking and emotional regulation, learns to defer to your amygdala, the part scanning constantly for threat. You become hypervigilant, attuned, gifted at reading rooms, soothing people, disappearing when it serves the situation. This was not a flaw. This was engineering. Your nervous system built you an extraordinary tool for surviving a childhood that required more from you than it should have. The problem is that you're not a child anymore, and the tool is still running. Here's where it gets specific. You probably don't relate to the obvious stuff. You don't think of yourself as damaged or traumatized. You function. You function exceptionally well, actually, and that's part of why this is so hard to see. Yeah, but there are things you might recognize if you sit with them. You struggle to rest without earning it first. Relaxation feels like something you have to deserve, and you're never quite sure you do. So you stay busy. You stay useful. You stay needed. You're uncomfortable when things are good. Not in a way you'd admit out loud, but there's a part of you that braces when life goes quiet, that waits for the thing that's coming. Because in your experience, calm was never permanent. It was just the space before the next emergency. You overfunction in relationships. You give more than you receive, and you've convinced yourself that's just who you are. Generous, low maintenance, easy. But if you're being precise about it, the truth is that needing things from people has always felt like a liability. You are extraordinarily capable and privately exhausted in a way you can't fully explain to anyone, because from the outside, you look like someone who has it together. And you feel guilty. For wanting more, for being tired, for not being grateful enough for the things that are actually good in your life. That guilt is not a character flaw, it's a receipt, proof of how early you learned that your needs came second. Here's the question that matters. Why are you still doing this? Not out of necessity, not because someone is forcing you. You're an adult. The house isn't on fire, and yet you're still standing in the doorway watching for smoke. Why? Because the version of you who learned to function this way is still the one running the show. When people talk about childhood wounds, there's this tempting idea that time handles it, that growing up and moving out means moving on. But the nervous system doesn't operate on a calendar. It operates on evidence, and until it gets new evidence, it keeps using the old map. The "I'm fine" you've been saying your whole life isn't a lie. It's a strategy. You learned early that falling apart was not an option, so you built a self that didn't fall apart. That self is impressive, competent, contained, and it is slowly hollowing you out. Because the little girl who needed to cry, who needed someone to handle it for once, who needed to be small and taken care of, and not responsible for the emotional temperature of every room she walked into. She didn't go anywhere. She just learned to be quiet. Here's something no one is going to say to you. No one is coming back to give that girl what she needed. That chapter is closed. The people who should have shown up differently may never fully understand what that cost you. You can love them and still grieve what wasn't there. But here's what's true. You are the only one who can go back for her. Not to fix the past. That's not how this works. But to stop abandoning her in the present. To stop treating your own needs as inconveniences. To stop building your worth out of your usefulness. This is what shadow work actually means. Not a performance of healing, not a 30-day journal challenge. It means sitting with the parts of yourself you buried because they weren't safe to show. The anger, the need, the grief, the part of you that wanted to be chosen and wasn't. Integration is the word psychologists use. It means nothing more or less than this. Becoming whole by refusing to keep certain parts of yourself in exile. Healing from this is not soft work. It will probably feel like grief at first, because it is grief, for the childhood that had a different shape than it should have, for the version of yourself that never got to just be a kid, for all the years you spent being capable instead of being held. You're going to have to learn how to want things out loud, how to rest without a reason, how to let people see you when you're not performing competence. How to stay in your body when nothing is wrong instead of manufacturing a crisis to feel normal. None of that is small. All of it is possible. You were not broken by what happened to you. You were shaped by it, intelligently, strategically, in ways that kept you intact, when intact was what you needed to be. But you are not in that room anymore. The woman you are right now gets to decide what she's shaped by next. That's not a small thing. That's everything. You didn't survive all of that to stay small forever. You survived it so you could finally, for the first time, choose who you become. Go choose.